You were in the midst of shooting back in 2014 when the name of East Dix Mountain was officially changed to Grace Peak in honor of Grace Hudowalski, the first woman 46er, and really the matriarch of the 46er Club. How fitting was that to rename East Dix Grace Peak?
Well, there were multiple mountains named after Dix, so it was appropriate to switch it, and she deserved it. She, from what I understood from other people who knew her well, I didn't have the pleasure to know her, but I feel like I know her through the people that I've met who she was like a mother or a sister to. I think she would have probably scoffed at the idea because she wasn't in it for the attention, but I think all of the 46er organization and me as someone who's been involved in that story, I think she deserved it, and I think it's absolutely right. And it was beautiful that it happened during the film because then we got to, that's the final bit in my original credits is it was officially renamed. And it's really cool to be able to acknowledge that, and I think absolutely well deserved.
She was number 9.
Grace was number 9, yes.
And as I mentioned, she was really the matriarch in that she was the driving force behind the 46ers Club. And for the people joining every year, several hundred, I think, probably are now joining every year. It's hit 10,000 this year, didn't it? Over 10,000. But it's just not a case where you climb it, you go, well, I did it. How about that? And off I go. She really wanted to share the experience and make it an experience. And for many years, she really required the people becoming 46ers to share their experience. Send her a letter and explain and describe what it was like. Maybe the physical challenges, but then the experience of reaching their goal. So she really preserved the memories of so many of the 46ers along the way by having them write these letters.
Absolutely, and for me that's a nice turn in the film as well, is you go from stories and stories, you hear all these stories, and then you hear about the person, the woman, who really promoted that and made that happen. And for me, it was really special to have Grace in the film. At the outset, I didn't know who Grace was, but very quickly, we heard a lot about Grace. And there was actually a movie done about Grace called The Mountains Will Wait For You. And the filmmaker, Fred, was very gracious to allow me to use some of the clips from the film where he had spent time with Grace and created this beautiful tribute to her. So we have only a snippet of what he's done to honor Grace's memory, but we like to include her in that because she's such a pivotal piece of the story, and she touched so many of the lives of the individuals who we interviewed that it would seem inappropriate to exclude her from the story. And I can't imagine the film without her in it now. And as we created that, it's interesting, that first hike I referenced in 2012 when my dad and my brother and I hiked Marcy, the lean-to we stayed at was the Hudowalski lean-to, which in hindsight was providence, that here we're staying at this lean-to, the first woman 46er, the one who really was the driving force behind the club. This was the trip where I was inspired to tell this story, and then it became a 3-year journey, and then as we've been on the track for the public television release, now we're coming up on 5 years of since the start, and it's very fitting. I still can remember coming there and saying, oh, Hudowalski, who is that? What's this lean-to name for? Very fitting that that's where we stayed on the first trip that inspired the whole production.